Second episode of Bofu News. Media has been talking about the elections and who has greater chance of winning, and when it comes to that subject, I technically can't tell you who to vote for, but I can show you the elections from the market perspective, how the US dollar index reacted to US elections in recent years. We start with Bush. Within 2 months, the index fell by 6.5% and then rebounded. Bush won again and dropped, this time by 5% and then rebounded. Okay, now Obama's victory and solid decline, rebound and decline again, as you can see. Obama again, and this time the price went sideways and then bounced up. Finally, a current candidate, Donald Trump, and after he was elected, the dollar rose and then fell. And Joe Biden, a candidate who has a lot in common with Kamala, rapid growth. But realistically, it's not the party but the demands that play a role. There is no dependence on Democrats or Republicans here because their policies change over time. Instead, you should pay attention to the candidates themselves and their demands because that is what matters most here. Looking at the chart during Trump's term, he can be assessed as a candidate who is moderately supportive of the dollar. Seeing these declines, the dollar has made up for its losses, but the sudden decline does not look particularly positive. Biden and therefore Harris can be considered as a candidate very favorable to the strong position of the dollar. Looking at the huge increase in the index during his term of office, it is worth taking a look at the history of interest rates and comparing them with the local DXY movements. Let's start with Trump. From November 16th, the price of the dollar went up a little and then fell. You can see from the interest rates that they were rising at that point, so they could have supported the dollar's growth. Interest rate increases continued until 2019, when they dropped sharply after a short stagnation. Contrary to appearances, the dollar did not grow along with the raised interest rates, but on contrary, it fell. The situation was made worse by the sudden rate cut, which drove him into the ground, literally. Then Biden won and the dollar began to rise after a strong decline. And then the sudden increase in rates only added fuel to it, which was visible in the following months. Then naturally, after strong increases, it recovered and is currently in board consolidation. It is clear that interest rates largely dictate the direction of the dollar, and the fact that the dollar grew during the term of the office of a given president does not mean that those in power did something and tried to strengthen the dollar. Okay? And how will the dollar react to Trump and Harris? According to a report by Morgan Stanley, although Trump intends to weaken the dollar to support exports, it is expected to strengthen. Considering that before the 2016 elections, the dollar was expected to weaken after Trump's victory as predicted by these guys, history has shown that despite the declines, the dollar has regained its position. So overall, despite Trump's talk about supporting exports, the dollar may not get hit as hard as it seems, guys. Okay. Additionally, the matter is changed by the fact that Trump will aim to strongly strengthen the American economy, which will also have a positive impact on the dollar. The factor that may disturb this is lowering of interest rates by FED, which I have already mentioned. But I have to remind you to keep it in your mind. However, it is expected that Harris will continue Biden's policy, which is confirmed by her statements at campaign rallies. In addition, less emphasis is expected on boosting economic growth, which will certainly not help in strengthening the dollar. Time will tell whether the forecasts will be true or not. On October 7th, the war broke out on Gaza Strip, which gave a clear signal to the world that the chaos in this region was reaching a new level. The situation was constantly escalating, the humanitarian crisis was in full swing, and the armed companies were on cloud 9. And so the situation escalated until Israel attacked Lebanon and Iran launched a missile attack on Israel in response, sending missiles to Iran in response. However, Israel's response was not as significant as they announced, so it gives some signal that maybe the escalation will begin to slow down there, at least for some time. Well, in Middle East, one country shooting missiles at another is pretty common thing. In the first days after the beginning of the conflict, oil was rising, but then it fell, and we can say that it has been consolidating to this day. Ultimately, since the conflict began, the price of oil has fallen by 18%. What is the reason for this, since the risk of war in the East should drive up the price of oil? Analysts predict that the main reason is the decreasing demand for crude oil. The whole world is moving towards renewable energy sources. Oil production continued to grow until 2020 when the pandemic severely limited it. After the pandemic, production quickly returned to pre-pandemic levels. On the percentage scale, we can see that the production neither decreases nor increases but remains at high levels. Currently, inventories are at low level, but they are expected to increase, which, given the continuous production, means slowly weakening demand. Obviously, this will not happen within a few years, but slowly over time the position of oil will weaken. That is why the price is not increasing, but is in consolidation. Gold, as could be predicted, is rising and has increased by as much as 50%. The ongoing war in Ukraine and Gaza, growing tensions between the superpowers, the specter of upcoming recession and hurdling of a financial crisis have an impact on safe havens. And one of them is certainly gold. It is normal that people look for a safe place to invest their capital. Raytheon Technologies, the largest US arms company in the terms of market cap, has increased by 85%. For comparison, I will add two large arm companies from the USA, LMT, i.e. Lockheed Martin, and GD, i.e. General Dynamics. It is clear that all these companies gained a lot, Lockheed Martin over 50% and GD over 40%. Currently they are undergoing a correction because firstly they are heavily overbought, and secondly, there are indications that a small de-escalation is slowly taking place in Middle East region. However, it is worth following these companies because if conflicts increase rather than decrease, maybe the current correction is a good opportunity to think about investing. I don't know, I don't suggest anything. One of the most interesting events to follow, in my opinion, is the crisis at Ubisoft. In the long term, we are seeing declines all the time. Some people are rubbing their hands and pouring money into shares, while others believe that this ship is about to sink very soon. Of course, the company deserved this fate. What I mean here is, for example, delay in the release of Assassin's Creed Shadows, whole Star Wars Outlaws thing where sales results are simply poor, and the failure of Skull and Bones, which failed in terms of sales even more than Star Wars. Well, the last time we saw such Ubisoft share prices was 10 years ago. However, the question arises, will the company's shares continue to fall, and is there an opportunity to buy shares due to the low price in the heat of criticism and negative emotions? These declines are clearly visible on weekly interval. We also notice two historical declines. The scope of losses is identical to this one. You can see it better now. Down 92% and up 1800%. Down 90%, up 2800%. This time again a 90% decline. Of course, this time it doesn't have to be the same as before, but maybe some of you will think that the company is undervalued or something. Do whatever you want with it. I don't know. We know very well that the current situation is very negative. The two latest premieres are completely f***ed up. The flagship game has been postponed. We also cannot forget about the rumors about Tencent buying Ubisoft. In such a scenario, I assume that lowering the price of the company shares may even be intentional so that Tencent can buy them at lower price. As you can see, investors are very positive about this news, so I conclude that either the company's policy will change completely or someone from outside will come and do it. Bye.